Hello, I'm Mr. Wade, and I never thought I'd be telling this story. My son humiliated me in front of the whole family, mocked me like I was nothing, then tossed my suitcase in the lake. But what came out of that water changed everything. I always thought family was supposed to have your back, but they've been lying to me for years. It's not just the suitcase. No, this goes way deeper. My own flesh and blood sold me out, took my inheritance, and betrayed me in ways you won't believe. What I uncovered will shake you to your core, and I'm ready to expose it all. Trust me, you don't want to miss how this ends. What happened next will blow your mind. The drive to the family reunion was long, stretching the limits of my patience, but I found myself contemplating each mile, each moment. It's funny how time works like that, how it both rushes and drags. I used to drive this stretch of road every holiday, with the kids in the back seat, Rachel in her little car seat, and Jordan chattering away, asking a million questions. We were a family then, in every sense of the word. Now, I could feel the distance growing not just in miles, but in ways I couldn't quite put my finger on. I'd been invited. Well, more like summoned, but it still counted as an invite, right? As I approached the house, I could see it all, every detail, how it had changed, how they had changed. The house still had that same old brick facade, but it felt different. Cold, almost. I parked the car, the engine dying with a sputter, and took a deep breath. This wasn't just another reunion. This was the one where I'd finally see how far they'd all drifted. How they'd let the years between us turn into something I couldn't ignore anymore. I stepped out of the car and took my first steps into the yard, feeling the weight of the years press against my chest. The yard was full of people, laughter and noise, a cacophony that for some reason felt like it didn't include me. I looked around, Rachel standing in a group, a glass of wine in her hand, her smile too perfect. Jordan, his laugh booming as he clapped someone on the back. They all looked comfortable. They looked right where they belonged. And then there was me. I walked into the crowd, and for a moment I felt like a ghost. Not in the I'm fading away way, but in the I don't belong here anymore way. I could hear the conversation around me, but it was like I wasn't even part of it. I'd spent so many years sacrificing, providing, and now it seemed like I was nothing more than a shadow in the background. A figure to ignore. I stood by the side watching them all, the years catching up to me. I had made so many sacrifices for them. I gave everything, my time, my energy, my youth. I poured everything I had into making sure they were okay. But somewhere along the way, I'd lost myself, and so had they. They didn't see it. They couldn't, and I couldn't blame them. But I had to wonder, did it ever matter? Then I heard Jordan's voice, loud, brash, mocking. Well, look who finally showed up. Thought you'd take the whole week to figure out what day it was, huh? I flinched. The words hit harder than they should have. I had seen it coming, but it still hurt. Still, I held it together. I had to. Is it that bad to be old, Jordan? I asked, trying to keep the bitterness out of my voice, but I could feel it bubbling up. I didn't have the energy to fight him. Not today, not here. He snickered, tossing a glance over his shoulder as if I wasn't worth the effort to even face fully. No, old man. It's just that you've been stuck in the past so long you might as well be a fossil. The laughter from the group that followed stung, sharp and unforgiving. And in that moment, I realized how little respect I had left in this family. It wasn't just the way Jordan mocked me. It was the way Rachel stayed silent, like she had no clue how to stand up for me, or didn't care enough to. It was clear as day now. My children had grown into strangers, and that thought made my stomach twist in a way that nothing else had in years. Jordan wasn't done. I watched him casually walk away from the group and head towards the lake, and I felt a sinking sensation in my chest. I had seen that look in his eyes before. It wasn't a look of love or concern. It was a look of, I couldn't even describe it. It was more than frustration. It was disdain. Before I could blink, he grabbed my suitcase, my only suitcase, the one I had packed with the few things I owned, and tossed it into the lake. The sound it made when it hit the water echoed through me, as if the weight of the action struck me deeper than the suitcase ever could. He didn't even look back as it sank. Just like that, I was a burden. I froze, watching the ripples form and expand, swallowing my life's work, the things I had saved for years. "Jordan!" I shouted, but it was like my voice couldn't reach him. It felt too small, too weak. The anger, the humiliation, it hit me all at once. My blood was boiling, my heart pounding in my chest, but I couldn't move. The family, the others, they just stood there, some pretending they didn't see, others with that same awkward expression of discomfort, too afraid to speak up. None of them stepped forward. Not even Rachel. It wasn't just the suitcase. It was everything. My heart ached. I felt discarded. A relic. The father no one needed. And then something strange happened. I could hear something coming from the suitcase. A faint, muffled sound. It was like the suitcase was alive. I could barely make out the noise over the roar of my own blood in my ears, but it was unmistakable. There was something inside it, something more than what I had left behind. I couldn't just leave it there. I had to know. Without thinking, I rushed to the lake, my feet sinking into the soft mud as I reached for the suitcase. My heart pounded. My body felt heavy, but I couldn't stop myself. I pulled it from the water, my hands trembling as I unzipped it. And there it was, my life's betrayal, staring me right in the face. I didn't want to believe it. Couldn't believe it. But there it was, the thing that had been kept from me, the thing I'd never known existed, the thing that had been hidden all this time like a knife buried deep in my chest. My breath caught in my throat. I staggered backward, the suitcase still in my hands, the weight of its contents heavier than anything I had ever known. I stood there by the lake, the water still rippling from where my suitcase had sunk. My heart was racing, but it wasn't from the cold of the water or the sudden rush of adrenaline. It was because I had just seen something that shook me to my core. The suitcase, what had been inside it, the documents, the pictures, the damn letter. It wasn't just a symbol of what my family had discarded. It was a reminder of everything I had built, only to have it stripped away, piece by piece. I looked around. The family was still scattered across the yard, laughing, talking, completely oblivious to what had just happened, to the bomb that had just dropped in my life. I felt a chill creep up my spine, not from the evening air, but from the realization that I had just uncovered something far darker than I could have imagined. They had been hiding something, and it wasn't just about the money, it was about control. I walked back slowly, each step feeling heavier than the last. My thoughts were in overdrive. I couldn't just ignore what I had seen. It wasn't just a matter of a few financial papers or some old photos. The documents in that suitcase were a direct attack on my place in this family. I'd spent decades working to build something for them, to give them the life they deserved. And this is how they repay me, by erasing me from the picture. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand the silence that Rachel and Jordan had put between us. The distance, the coldness. I wasn't just getting older. I was becoming invisible. Sitting on the edge of the porch, I tried to calm myself, but the anger inside me was like a wildfire. I thought about the years of sacrifice, the late nights, the work I had done, the things I had given up. All of it wasted, gone. And for what? So that Jordan could toss my suitcase into the lake? So that Rachel could turn her back on me just like everyone else had? I tried to breathe through the rage, but the more I thought about it, the deeper the wound became. They'd turned me into a shadow. They didn't even have the decency to hide it anymore. It wasn't just about the suitcase, damn it. It was about everything they had done, everything they had taken from me. I needed to act. But then I remembered the look in Rachel's eyes when I confronted her about the documents. She knew something, something I didn't. She had been avoiding the truth, sidestepping the issue as if I didn't deserve to know. She'd known about the house, the sale, the plans to sell everything without me. How long had they been planning this? How long had they been deciding my fate without even bothering to include me? I didn't have all the answers yet, but I could feel the ground shifting under me. I wasn't the man I used to be, but I wasn't going to let them push me aside without a fight. The anger inside me grew hotter as I thought about Jordan. The bastard didn't even apologize. He just tossed my life away like it was nothing. Just like his mother used to say, he had no respect for me, no respect for the man who made him who he was. I had spent so many years trying to do right by my children, by my family, but now it was clear. None of it mattered. They were all in it for themselves, and I was just a forgotten relic. I stood up, my mind made up. This wasn't going to go away. Not until I had answers. Not until I knew exactly what they had done to me and why. I wasn't going to sit back and let them destroy everything I had worked for. Not without a fight. I needed to talk to Rachel. I needed to make her see what I knew. She couldn't hide behind her silence anymore. I didn't care if she was afraid to take sides. I needed the truth. The whole truth. As I walked toward the house, I felt my chest tighten. There was so much I needed to say, so much I needed to ask. But every step I took felt like I was walking closer to a precipice. What if Rachel didn't care? What if she'd already chosen her side? When I reached her, she was sitting on the porch watching the others. I stood there for a moment, watching her, wondering how it had come to this. How had my little girl, who once looked at me like I could do no wrong, become someone who wouldn't even stand up for me? "Rachel," I said, my voice firmer than I felt. She looked up, her face hard, her eyes distant. "What's going on, Dad?" I crossed my arms. "You know what's going on." She didn't respond right away. Instead, she looked down, avoiding my gaze. I could see the guilt in her eyes, but she wasn't going to admit it. Not yet. "They've been planning it, haven't they?" I asked, my voice low. "They've been planning to sell the house without me." Rachel stiffened, her hands tightening around her glass. I could tell she wanted to say something, but the words never came. I don't know what you mean," she finally said, her voice soft but unconvincing. I leaned in, my anger bubbling over. "Don't lie to me, Rachel. I saw the papers. I know what's been happening behind my back. Don't act like you don't know." She swallowed hard, avoiding my eyes. I didn't want to get involved." "Too late for that now," I snapped. "You're already involved. You're complicit in this mess. You're just as bad as they are." She finally looked up at me, her eyes full of hurt and confusion. I'm not taking sides, Dad. I can't." That was it. The final betrayal. She wasn't going to take sides. She had already chosen hers. I turned away, my heart heavy. I couldn't believe this was happening. They had turned on me, every last one of them. As I walked away, I felt a knot in my stomach. The betrayal was deeper than I could have ever imagined. I had given everything for this family, and they were throwing me away like I meant nothing. But I wasn't going to let it end like this, not without a fight. I wasn't finished yet. The air was thick in the house as I sat on the edge of the bed, staring out the window. I had spent the night tossing and turning, replaying the events of the reunion over and over again in my head. The mockery from Jordan, the suitcase, the legal documents, it was all weighing heavy on me. I felt a fire in my chest, a deep anger that I couldn't ignore. My thoughts were spiraling. I knew I had to confront Jordan. This couldn't go on any longer, but part of me was still hesitant, questioning if I should take the high road and let it slide or speak out in anger and demand answers. I wasn't sure what would be more destructive, holding everything in or confronting him head on. I ran my hand through my hair and sighed. No more pretending. This family, my family, had been pretending everything was fine for too long, and I had been the fool for believing it. All those years I worked, sacrificing, giving everything I had for them, and they couldn't even give me the respect of honesty. And I had built this life for them, and they were tearing it down piece by piece. The thought of Jordan, so smug, laughing with his friends, never realizing the damage he was doing, made my blood boil. I remembered when he was a kid, when he looked up to me, when he needed me. Those were the moments I cherished. Those moments when he still respected me. But now it felt like all those years of hard work had been erased, like I didn't matter anymore. The betrayal cut deeper than I expected. I knew what I had to do. I couldn't wait any longer. I had to stand up for myself. But I had to be strategic. I wasn't going to let this consume me, but I wasn't going to let it slide either. I couldn't. I grabbed the legal documents from the table beside me. They were my proof, my leverage. If this family was going to keep pushing me aside, I was going to make sure they knew exactly how much they had lost. I thought back to the countless sacrifices I made. Sleepless nights, working 2 jobs just to keep food on the table. I gave up my time, my energy, my dreams, all of it for them. And now, here I was, standing alone, holding these documents that proved everything I had worked for was being ripped away. I couldn't let that happen, not without a fight. I picked up the phone, dialing Rachel's number. My heart was racing, but I couldn't show weakness. Not now. When she answered, her voice was strained, like she knew something was coming. "Dad," she said softly, "what's going on?" "I need to talk to you," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "About the house, about the sale. You know what I'm talking about." I heard her sigh on the other end. There was hesitation in her voice, like she didn't want to get involved. "I don't know what you want me to say, Dad," she replied, her words careful. "There's nothing we can do about it." I clenched my jaw, trying to keep my temper in check. "That's what you've been telling me for weeks, Rachel. But I know more than you think. I know about the legal papers. I know about the house." There was silence for a moment. I could hear her breathing, and I could feel the walls between us growing thicker. "I didn't want to get involved," she said finally, her voice quiet. "I didn't want to make things worse." I felt my frustration rising. "You're already involved, Rachel. You've been involved this whole time. You're my daughter, for God's sake. I raised you, I gave you everything, and now you're just going to stand there and let them treat me like this?" "I'm not taking sides, Dad," she said quickly, but it didn't sound convincing. "I'm just trying to get by." I closed my eyes, trying to keep my composure. "I know about the plans to sell the house. I saw the documents. You can't lie to me about this." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was smaller, almost apologetic. "I didn't want to tell you. I didn't want to be the one to hurt you." "Then why didn't you stop it?" I shot back. "Why didn't you tell me sooner? Why did you let them erase me from everything? Why didn't you step in?" There was a long pause. When she spoke again, her words hit me like a ton of bricks. "I knew," she admitted quietly. "I knew they were planning to leave you out of everything, but I didn't have a choice. I was just following orders. I couldn't stop them." The words were like a slap in the face. I had known deep down that Rachel wasn't innocent in all of this. But hearing her admit it out loud, hearing her say she followed orders, tore me apart. I wasn't just a victim of my son's betrayal. I was also the victim of my own daughter's silence. "I can't believe this," I muttered under my breath. "I can't believe you'd just stand by and let this happen." I hung up the phone before she could respond. My mind was racing. I had known somewhere inside that Rachel was more involved than she had let on, but hearing her admit it, shattered whatever hope I had left. I couldn't wait any longer. I had to confront Jordan. I spent the next few hours writing everything down. My thoughts, my feelings, everything I wanted to say. My anger had turned into cold determination. I was done being quiet, done letting them walk all over me. I knew I had to confront him publicly. I wasn't going to let this be some private conversation. I wanted everyone to hear what I had to say. This wasn't just about me. This was about everything I had built, everything I had sacrificed. The plan was simple. I'd confront him during dinner when the whole family was there. I'd call him out. I'd make him admit what he had done. I wasn't scared. I was ready. But there was still something in the back of my mind, something that kept nagging at me. What if it wasn't enough? What if confronting him didn't change anything? What if this wasn't the end but the beginning of something worse? But I wasn't going to back down. I had to do this. Dinner was approaching, and as I got ready, I felt the weight of the moment bearing down on me. This wasn't just another family argument. This was my life, my legacy, and I wasn't going to let them take it from me without a fight. The days following my last confrontation with Jordan were a blur of anger and frustration. I spent hours in my room sitting by the window replaying the events over and over in my mind. It was like I was living in a storm, and I couldn't escape the turmoil inside me. My children had turned on me. Jordan, once my pride and joy, now mocked me at every turn, and Rachel, well, Rachel had just stood there, too scared or too indifferent to take a stand. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine. I had sacrificed my whole life for them. Long hours at work, working double shifts, never being able to go on vacations, always putting them first. And now, they were throwing me away like I was some burden they didn't need anymore. The bitterness had begun to eat away at me, but I wasn't about to let that show. I couldn't afford to look weak, not now. I stood up, pacing around the room, my mind spinning with thoughts. I needed to take control. I was done waiting around, hoping they would come to their senses. No, it was time to fight for what was mine. Time to stand up to Jordan and show him that I wasn't going to be pushed aside any longer. I thought back to my father's lessons. He always told me that I was never to let anyone make me feel small. He'd been a strong man, and I knew it was time to live by his example. That night, I decided to call for another family meeting. I had no choice. I couldn't let this fester any longer. I needed answers, and I needed to confront Jordan once and for all. The family would be there, and this time I was bringing the truth with me. The next evening, I gathered everyone in the living room. The tension was thick, suffocating almost. Everyone filed in slowly, sitting down on the couches, avoiding eye contact with me. I could see the discomfort in their eyes. They were all too aware of the tension that had been building. I knew they were all still reeling from the last time I spoke up, but this time it was different. I wasn't going to hold back. Rachel, I began, my voice calm but firm. We need to talk about what happened. About everything. She shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her eyes flickering to the others before looking back at me. I could tell she wanted to avoid the topic, but this time she wouldn't be able to escape it. I don't know what you want me to say, Dad, she said, her tone defensive. We're all just trying to get by. I don't know what's going on with Jordan either. I could feel the anger rising inside me, but I held it back, taking a deep breath. I wasn't going to let her avoid this. Don't give me that, I replied, my voice steady. You know what's going on. Don't act like you haven't seen it. You've been protecting Jordan this whole time. Rachel opened her mouth to say something, but I didn't let her. You and Jordan have been pushing me out of everything. You think I don't know about the house, about the plan to sell it without even asking me? You think I'm just going to sit back and let you take everything I've worked for? She flinched, and for a second I saw something in her eyes. Guilt, maybe, or fear, but she quickly masked it. I don't know why this is happening, but I don't think it's as simple as you're making it out to be, she said quietly. I shook my head, disappointment heavy in my chest. Rachel, I've given my whole life to this family. I've worked so hard to make sure you two had everything you needed. And this is how you repay me? By letting Jordan take over everything and leaving me out in the cold? Her gaze faltered, and she looked down at her lap. But before I could say anything else, she spoke again, this time in a softer voice. I didn't want it to be like this, she said, barely above a whisper. But I didn't have a choice. I've always followed what Jordan said. He's been in charge for so long. I felt the sting of her words. She'd been complicit all along. The thought of it made my blood boil, but I swallowed it down. I had to stay calm. That's the problem, Rachel, I said, my voice low but unwavering. You've let him run the show while I've been ignored. And now I'm the one who's supposed to clean up the mess. No, it doesn't work like that. You and Jordan both owe me an explanation. She didn't say anything, just sat there staring at the floor. I wasn't going to let her off the hook that easily. Do you even realize what you've done? I continued. Do you know how much this hurts me? How much it's been eating at me? I've sacrificed everything for you, and now I'm being tossed aside like I never mattered. The silence in the room was suffocating. I could see Jordan sitting across from me, his face flushed with anger. He hadn't said a word, but I could feel the tension rising between us. I wasn't going to let him off easy. I looked at him. You've been playing everyone, Jordan. You've been the golden child, the one who gets everything handed to him while I've been left to pick up the pieces. But not anymore. Jordan's eyes widened, and he finally stood up, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Oh, now you want to talk. Now after all these years of letting me handle things, you want to make a scene? I stood up, my fists clenched at my sides. It's not a scene, Jordan. It's the truth. I'm not going to let you tear this family apart for your own gain. You've taken everything from me, but I'm done being the quiet, patient one. I pulled the legal documents from my jacket pocket and slammed them down on the table. These prove what you've been hiding, what you've been doing behind my back. Jordan's face went pale as he looked at the papers. That's not what you think, he stammered, but I could hear the panic in his voice. You don't get to talk your way out of this anymore, I said, my voice growing colder. The truth is out now. The room was dead silent. The weight of the moment was too much for anyone to process. I could see the shock in Rachel's eyes, the guilt that was now seeping through her. Jordan opened his mouth to speak, but I wasn't done yet. You want to destroy this family for money, for power, for control. Fine. But know this, I'm not backing down. You can't take what's mine without a fight. His face contorted in rage. You're ruining everything. You're tearing us apart. Don't blame me for the mess you've made, I shot back. You've been tearing us apart from the inside for years. Now it's time to face the consequences. Rachel looked like she was about to speak, but before she could, I turned to her. You've had your chance to do the right thing, but now I'm doing it my way. The air was thick with tension, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I wasn't sure if this was the last chance to fix things, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going down without a fight. I sat in the dim light of my living room, the weight of the past few days pressing down on me. The family, my own flesh and blood, had crossed a line, and the silence that had once kept me at peace now felt like a chain. My patience had been my curse, and I was finally done with it. I had been silent for too long, letting their words, their actions fester inside me, letting them think they could walk all over me, take what they wanted, and never face the consequences. That night, as the hours ticked by, I reflected on everything. My sacrifices, the years I spent building this family, the love I gave. All of it had been thrown aside like it meant nothing. My thoughts shifted to Jordan, the son I had raised, the one who had been my pride. And now he was the one who was tearing everything apart. The anger bubbled up inside me, but it was more than anger. It was a deep, gnawing betrayal. I had given everything to them, and this is how they repaid me. I couldn't sit by anymore, letting them push me into silence. This was it. I was done. The time for being patient, for hoping things would change, had passed. It was time to take action. I reached for the phone and dialed my lawyer's number. He was the only person I could trust right now. As the phone rang, I felt the weight of my decision pressing down on me. Mr. Wade, my lawyer answered after the third ring. I'm ready, I said, my voice steady but full of resolve. I want to start the process. I'm done waiting. There was a pause on the other end. Are you sure? This is going to get messy, and once you start, there's no turning back. I'm sure, I said. Let's make it happen. The next morning, my lawyer came by to hand me the paperwork. When I saw him standing at my door, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of relief. Finally, things were moving, but as I signed the documents, my lawyer dropped a bombshell. "There's more," he said, handing me a file. "I've been looking into Jordan's finances. You won't believe what I found." I opened the file and my stomach twisted as I scanned the documents. Jordan had been siphoning money from the family accounts for years, skimming off the top, hiding funds, and using his position to push through deals that only benefited him. The betrayal was deeper than I could have ever imagined. "Are you telling me this whole time that he's been stealing from us?" I asked, my voice thick with disbelief. "Not just stealing," my lawyer replied, his tone grim. "He's been orchestrating everything, even the sale of the house, without your consent. This goes beyond anything you could have guessed." A cold fury spread through my chest. I could feel my blood boil as I clenched my fists. I was done. Jordan had pushed me too far. I wasn't going to let him get away with it. Later that evening, I gathered the family for another meeting. It was time for them to hear the truth, the whole truth. I wasn't going to let Jordan or anyone else manipulate me anymore. When they walked into the living room, there was an air of reluctance. The tension from our last confrontation still hung heavy in the room. I took a deep breath before speaking. "I'm filing a lawsuit," I said, my voice steady. "And I'm doing it because I've had enough. This family, my family, has treated me like I don't matter. But I do matter, and I won't let you get away with what you've done." Jordan immediately snapped. "You're crazy. You can't just throw everything away like this, like you're some kind of victim. You're making a mess out of nothing." I didn't flinch. "You're the one who's been making a mess, Jordan. You've been lying to everyone, manipulating them for your own gain. And I'm done letting you get away with it." Rachel, who had been quiet until now, shifted uncomfortably. I could see the guilt in her eyes, but it was clear she didn't know which side to take. She hadn't fully sided with me, yet. "I don't know what to say, Dad," she said, her voice uncertain. "I didn't know about all this." "You didn't know?" I said, my frustration bubbling over. "How could you not know? How could you stand by while he took everything from us?" Rachel hesitated. "I was just trying to keep the peace." "Keeping the peace?" I repeated, incredulous. "By allowing him to destroy this family?" She looked down at her hands, unable to meet my gaze. "Rachel," I said, my voice softening, "this isn't about peace anymore. This is about standing up for what's right. It's about loyalty and respect. And you've been protecting him even when you knew he was wrong." Tears welled up in her eyes, and she finally spoke. "I didn't want to hurt anyone, but you're right. I didn't do enough. I'm sorry, Dad. I really am." The room fell silent as my words sunk in, but just as I thought this might be a breakthrough, Jordan interrupted. "You're all just going to take his side now? You think I'm the villain here? I'm the one who's been holding everything together, and now you want to tear it all down because of one mistake?" "No," I said, my voice firm. "It's not one mistake, Jordan. It's years of manipulation. Years of you taking from this family while everyone else sat by." The argument escalated from there, and soon it was no longer just me and Jordan shouting. Other family members joined in, some defending me, others defending Jordan, and a few still unsure of whose side to take. The fight quickly turned personal, with old wounds being ripped open. But the turning point came when Jordan, in a fit of rage, threw something I never expected at me. "You think you're the only one who sacrificed?" he shouted. "You think you're the only one who suffered? You don't know what I've been through. You don't know what Mom did either." The mention of my late wife hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt the blood drain from my face. "Don't bring her into this," I said through gritted teeth. "What the hell are you talking about?" Jordan smirked. "Oh, I know all about the secrets you two kept, about how she covered up your mistakes so you wouldn't look bad. You think you were the perfect father. You were a damn hypocrite." I stood there frozen, the words cutting deeper than anything he had ever said to me. My wife, my partner, had been hiding my flaws. And now Jordan was using it against me. The shock of it all left me speechless for a moment. But then the rage came, the anger, the betrayal. It was all too much. Enough, I shouted, my voice booming through the room. I don't want to hear another word from you. You've already destroyed enough. But deep down, I knew one thing for sure. This family was never going to be the same, and there was no going back. The house felt unusually quiet that morning, the air thick with the weight of decisions that had been made, the kind of decisions that would change everything. I could feel the heaviness pressing down on my chest as I sat in the worn armchair by the window, staring out at the quiet street. It was strange, the way everything had shifted. One moment, I was just a man trying to hold his family together, and the next, I was fighting a battle I never thought I'd have to wage. The betrayal from my son Jordan had cut deeper than any knife could. The lies, the manipulation, the years of sacrifices I had made, all of it seemed to mean nothing to him. And then there was Rachel, my daughter, who had sat silently by, torn between loyalty and the growing realization that the man she had trusted was not who she thought he was. I spent the whole day in a haze, replaying the events in my mind over and over. How had it gotten this bad? How had I let it all slip away? I thought back to the promises I made to my late wife, the dreams we had for our family. We worked hard for everything we had, built it from the ground up, and now it was all falling apart. I remembered the lessons my father had taught me, the ones that had stuck with me all my life. Never let anyone take you for granted, he'd said, but don't let anyone make you feel small. Those words rang in my ears as I prepared myself for the inevitable. I had tried to be patient. I had tried to keep the peace. But now I realized it was time to stand up for myself. This family, my family, had taken me for granted long enough. The phone call with my lawyer came late in the afternoon. "Mr. Wade," he began, his voice steady, but with an undertone of concern. "We need to talk. There's something else you need to know." I felt my pulse quicken as he explained the details. Jordan had been involved in some serious financial misdealings. The house, the business dealings, the money he'd siphoned off, it was all there, documented. The betrayal ran deeper than I could have imagined. It was no longer just about family issues. It was about power, control, and greed. My son, the one I had raised, had been slowly dismantling everything I had worked for, all while hiding behind a mask of respectability. The news hit me like a ton of bricks. It wasn't just that he was taking advantage of me, but that he had been doing it for years, right under my nose. All those nights I stayed up late, worrying about the future, about providing for them, only to have them destroy what I had built piece by piece. That night, as I sat in the darkened living room, I realized there was no turning back. The decision had already been made. I was going to confront Jordan. I was going to take the fight to him. No more running, no more hiding. But as I sat there, I felt a gnawing sense of guilt. Was I doing the right thing? Was this the path I should be on? A knock on the door interrupted my thoughts. It was an old family friend, someone who had been around long before all this mess started. I opened the door, and he stepped inside, his face grim. "You need to hear this," he said, handing me an envelope. "It's about your wife." I tore open the envelope and pulled out a letter from her lawyer. My heart skipped a beat as I read it. It seemed my late wife had left behind a will that had been kept hidden, sealed away for years. According to the letter, she had left instructions for me, instructions that could change everything. As I read further, my mind raced. What did this mean? What had she known? The questions flooded in, and I realized the secrets of the past were still haunting me, threatening to tear apart what little was left of my family. I put the letter down and looked at my friend. "What's this about?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and confusion. "You'll have to see it for yourself," he said quietly. "But this could be the leverage you need." I nodded slowly, the weight of it all pressing down on me. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for my wife's legacy, for the future of our family, even if it meant losing everything. The tension in the house had reached a boiling point. I knew that Jordan would fight back with everything he had. But what choice did I have? If I didn't fight for what was right, then everything I had done, everything I had worked for, would mean nothing. The next morning I called a family meeting. The air was thick with unresolved tension as my children reluctantly gathered around the table. Jordan sat with his arms crossed, his face a mask of defiance. Rachel, on the other hand, seemed more withdrawn than usual, her guilt hanging in the air like a cloud. "I'm filing a lawsuit," I said, my voice calm but unwavering. "And I'm doing it because I'm not going to let him take everything from me anymore." Jordan shot me a look of disbelief. "You're crazy," he snapped. "You think you can just throw everything away? You're the one who's been ruining this family, not me." I stood my ground. "You've been lying, Jordan. You've been taking from this family for years, and I'm done letting you get away with it." Rachel spoke up, her voice trembling. "Dad, I didn't know how bad it was. I didn't know he was doing all this." "You knew enough," I said, my voice hard. "You knew what was happening, and you chose to stay silent." Jordan, furious, tried to manipulate Rachel, but she was no longer the passive bystander she once was. "I didn't realize what I was doing, but now I know. I should have sided with you, Dad," she said, her voice filled with regret. "I'm sorry." The conversation turned into a shouting match. Family members took sides, some defending me, others Jordan. But the truth had come out, and it was too late for anyone to pretend like they didn't know what had been happening. Then, in the middle of the chaos, Jordan revealed something that shocked everyone. "You think I'm the only one who's been lying?" he sneered. "Mom covered for you too, you know. She kept your secrets. You think she was perfect? She wasn't. She was just as guilty." The words hit me like a punch in the stomach. My wife, she had been hiding things from me too. The family split apart even further after that, each member retreating to their respective corners. Some sided with Jordan, some with me, but all of us were left shattered by the truth. The trust that had once held us together had been broken beyond repair. I made the decision that night to cut ties with Jordan. It wasn't easy, and it hurt more than I thought it would, but it was necessary. But as I lay in bed, the silence of the house pressing down on me, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. There was more to come, more I would have to face, and for the first time in a long time, I knew that I was prepared to fight. I sat at the kitchen table, the weight of everything pressing down on me, making it hard to breathe. The silence in the house felt thick, oppressive. The only sound was the ticking of the old clock on the wall. It had been ticking away the minutes, the hours, the years, and now it felt like it was counting down to something inevitable. I had spent my life keeping my family together, always thinking that patience and silence were virtues. But now, after everything that had happened, I realized that silence had only allowed the rot to fester. It had let my children, the ones I had sacrificed everything for, tear me down without a second thought. No more. The decision had come slowly but resolutely. I was going to go public. The truth had to come out no matter the cost. I could no longer live with the burden of what my family had done to me. I had tried to fix things quietly, but that hadn't worked. Now it was time to expose everything, every lie, every manipulation. As I sat there, I thought about the years I had spent building my family's legacy. All of it seemed to be slipping through my fingers, but I couldn't let that be the end of it. I wasn't going to let them destroy everything I'd worked for. I wouldn't let them take my dignity, my name, without a fight. I had to take the power back, even if it meant losing everything. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. I rose slowly, the decision weighing heavily on my shoulders, and opened it to find a family friend standing there. He handed me an envelope. I could feel my heart skip a beat when I saw the handwriting on the front. It was from my late wife's lawyer. I tore it open. Inside was a letter, but it wasn't what I expected. It was a document from her will, a part of her will I had never seen before. It outlined something that could change everything. A betrayal. one that cut to the very heart of my family's future. As I read the letter, everything I thought I knew about my wife's death started to unravel. It wasn't just that she had died. It was the secrets she had kept from me. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me, but in that moment, I knew something had to be done. The truth needed to be revealed, not just for me, but for her too. The weight of it all was suffocating, but it gave me the clarity I needed. I was going to do it. I was going to expose the family for everything they had hidden. I didn't care what the fallout would be. I had to regain my life, my dignity, my peace. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid. The next day, the news hit. I called a family meeting. When I walked into the room, I could see the unease in everyone's eyes. The news of my decision to go public had spread, and the tension was unbearable. I could almost feel the heat rising, the anger simmering just beneath the surface. Jordan, ever the manipulator, immediately tried to downplay everything. "This is insane," he sneered. "You're going to make a fool of yourself. You're dragging the family through the mud for what? Pride?" I didn't flinch. "No, Jordan. I'm doing this because I'm done letting you ruin everything. I'm done being your punching bag. If you want to destroy this family, you'll do it without me." Rachel, standing beside him, didn't look convinced. She had always been the quiet one, the one who avoided confrontation. But I could see it in her eyes. Doubt, guilt, confusion. She knew the truth. She had been blind to it for too long, but now she was starting to see. "I can't just stay silent anymore," she finally said, her voice trembling. "I never understood how bad things had gotten. I thought you were being unreasonable, but now I see." The family was divided. Some of them sided with me, some sided with Jordan. Others just stood there frozen, unsure of what to say. The tension in the room was palpable, but I stood firm. I wasn't going to back down. And then, just as I thought the confrontation was over, someone I never expected stepped forward. It was Aunt Marlene, the one who always stayed in the background, never making waves. "I have something to say," she declared, her voice shaky but resolute. She handed me a folder. I opened it, and my heart sank. Inside were documents, bank records, things that proved Jordan had been mismanaging funds for years, hiding assets, and committing fraud. This was it, the final nail in the coffin. Jordan's face turned pale as he tried to deny everything. "This is nonsense," he spat. "You're all just trying to make me look bad." But the evidence was irrefutable. The truth had come to light, and there was no hiding from it anymore. The argument that followed was nothing short of explosive. Rachel, unable to stay silent any longer, spoke out. "You lied to me! You lied to all of us!" she shouted. "You've been stealing from us for years, and I've been blind to it." Jordan's face twisted in anger. "You think I did all this for nothing? I did it for the family," he yelled, his voice cracking with desperation. But his words fell on deaf ears. The family, once united, was now completely divided. The arguments grew louder, more vicious. Old wounds were reopened, and nothing would ever be the same again. And then, in a moment of desperation, Jordan revealed something else, something that floored everyone. "There's an inheritance," he confessed. "An inheritance that was supposed to be shared equally, but I've kept it for myself. And now, you all know." The room fell silent. The bombshell had been dropped, and there was no going back. But the truth didn't stop there. As the revelations continued, I learned that Jordan had been secretly working with someone close to me, someone I had trusted for years. My confidant, the person I had leaned on for support, had been pulling the strings behind the scenes, helping Jordan undermine me at every turn. I was furious. Betrayed not just by my son, but by someone I thought was loyal. But I had made my choice. The battle wasn't over, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let anyone get away with it anymore. The final confrontation left me drained but resolute. The family was broken, shattered beyond repair. But for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. The truth had come out, and the consequences were inevitable. As I walked out of that room, I realized that this was just the beginning. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but I wasn't walking it alone anymore. The truth had finally been revealed, and that, at least, was something worth fighting for. The day had come. The air felt heavy, thick with tension as I stood there, facing Jordan. This was it, the final confrontation. I had spent years of my life, my blood, sweat, and tears building a legacy, a family, and now it was all crumbling before me. But I wasn't going to back down. Not now. Jordan tried to maintain his composure, though I could see the tension in his face. He had always been good at spinning stories, convincing people to see things his way, but today would be different. Today, I was going to expose him for who he really was. I was going to end this once and for all. He stood there, his hands folded, his usual confident smirk barely hanging on. "You don't get it, do you?" he sneered. "You're overreacting, Dad. I've done what was necessary. This family is a mess, and I was just trying to fix it." I couldn't help but scoff. Fix it? By destroying it? By lying, cheating, and stealing from your own family? The room was still, the silence almost unbearable. The evidence I'd gathered, the things I had learned, were right in front of me, and I wasn't going to hold back. "You've lied to all of us, Jordan. You've manipulated every one of us for years. You stole money from this family. You're a thief, a liar, and now it's time to pay for it." His face turned pale for a second, but he quickly recovered, trying to put on his usual bravado. "I did it for us. I did it to keep us together." His words stung, but they didn't faze me. Not anymore. "You did it for yourself," I said, my voice steady but fierce. "Everything you've done has been about you. You've been destroying this family, and it ends now." Jordan's eyes flickered with something that wasn't quite anger, more like fear. I could see he was cornered, and desperation was starting to seep through his mask. "You don't know everything," he said, his voice low. "You don't know what I've had to do. There's more. Things you won't understand." He paused, and my heart dropped into my stomach. I had known for a long time that there were more secrets, more lies. But hearing him admit it so casually, it sent a chill through me. "What are you talking about?" I demanded, my voice sharp. "What more could there possibly be?" He took a deep breath, his eyes darting away for a split second before meeting mine. "I've been involved in some illegal activities. The money, the deals. I didn't have a choice. It was the only way to keep this family from falling apart. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. Illegal activities. My own son wrapped up in something so dark." The truth hit me like a ton of bricks. I had always suspected there was more to his actions than greed, but to hear him admit it so easily, it was a betrayal I couldn't wrap my mind around. My hands shook with anger as the truth sank in, and I had to fight to keep my voice steady. "So all this time, you've been lying to us, using us, all to protect yourself. You didn't care about anyone but yourself, did you?" He didn't answer. He just stood there, avoiding my gaze, looking more guilty than I had ever seen him. Before I could speak again, the door opened. Rachel stepped in, her face pale, eyes wide. She held a folder in her hands, papers, documents. She looked at me, then at Jordan. Without a word, she walked over and placed the folder on the table. "I have something to say," she said quietly, but with a firmness that was new, a side of her I hadn't seen before. Rachel opened the folder and slid it across the table. "I've known for years," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I didn't want to believe it, but I knew. I've been gathering evidence, watching, because I couldn't stand by and let you destroy this family anymore." Jordan's face turned white. "What are you talking about?" he sputtered, stepping back, his eyes wild with panic. Rachel took a deep breath, her hands shaking. "You've been using our family's money to line your own pockets. I know about the deals you made behind Dad's back. I know about the secret accounts. I know everything." The room was silent, but the weight of Rachel's words hung heavily in the air. Jordan tried to argue, to lie his way out, but it was too late. The truth had been laid bare, and there was no coming back from it. "Stop lying, Jordan," Rachel said, her voice steady now, her conviction clear. "You've ruined everything. You've lied to all of us, and now it's time for the truth to come out." The family, who had been silent until now, began to murmur among themselves. Some were shocked, others outraged, but one by one the lines were drawn. Some sided with Rachel and me, others with Jordan. The division was clear, and the family was splintering right before my eyes. But in that moment, I didn't care about the sides. I was done caring. I had fought for this family, sacrificed everything for it. But in the end, the only thing that mattered was my dignity. It was time to reclaim it. And then, just when I thought I had seen the worst, I discovered something else. A third party, someone I had trusted for years, had been helping Jordan, pulling the strings from behind the scenes. My closest ally had been in on it all along. The revelation hit like a sucker punch. I felt the betrayal deep in my bones. I had been wrong all along. I had trusted the wrong person, and now that trust had cost me more than I could imagine. The betrayal was almost too much to bear, but I wasn't going to let it break me. Not now. Not after everything I had fought for. "Why?" I demanded, my voice shaking with the weight of the question. "Why would you do this, after everything we've been through?" The ally, now exposed, looked guilty but defiant. "I didn't have a choice," they muttered. "Jordan promised me everything would be okay. I was scared of losing everything." "Scared of losing everything?" I repeated, my voice cold. "You should have been scared of losing your soul." The final confrontation was brutal. Jordan tried to justify his actions, tried to turn the tables, but it was clear. He had lost. The truth had come out. The damage had been done, but it wasn't just his life that was destroyed. It was the family's legacy, the one I had fought to protect. As the confrontation ended, I realized something. The family was shattered beyond repair. But for the first time in years, I felt at peace. I had fought for my dignity. I had exposed the lies. And no matter what happened next, I knew I had done the right thing. The price had been steep, but the truth had finally been revealed. The weight of the past seemed to hang in the air like a storm cloud, thick and oppressive. As I stood in the aftermath of everything that had happened, I could feel the silence wrapping around me. The family was shattered, each of us carrying the burden of the choices made, the lies exposed, and the bridges burned. My legacy, everything I had built, felt like it was lying in ruins at my feet. I had fought tooth and nail to protect it, to protect them, but at what cost? What was left now? I sank into the worn armchair in the study, looking out at the quiet street outside. The world kept turning, oblivious to the pain I carried. The family was fractured, and I knew deep down there was no going back to the way things had been. Some wounds were just too deep to heal. Still, in the stillness, I found something I hadn't expected. Peace, a reluctant peace. The truth had been set free, no matter the consequences. And somehow, that had to be enough. As I sat there, lost in thought, something caught my eye. A letter, tucked into the corner of the desk, hidden behind some old files. I picked it up and saw the familiar handwriting of my late wife. I hadn't expected this. It had been years since I'd even dared to look at anything related to her. But as I unfolded the letter, I found myself holding my breath. It was as if she had known that this moment would come. Her words were gentle, comforting, as though she were still here beside me. "Take the next step, no matter how hard it is. You've fought long enough. Now heal. Let go of what you cannot change. Love is the only thing that lasts." I stared at the words, feeling an ache in my chest. How had she known? She had always been the one who understood me the best. I hadn't been able to give her the life she deserved, but maybe, just maybe, I could still do right by her memory. The letter slipped from my hands, and I sat in silence for a long moment. I knew what I had to do now. A few days passed before Rachel came to see me. The house felt empty without the usual noise of the kids running around, the laughter we once shared. The emptiness was something I had grown used to, but it didn't make it any easier. I was surprised when Rachel knocked and stepped into my study. Her eyes were tired, but there was something new there, something I hadn't seen in her for a long time. She sat down across from me, fidgeting with her hands. "Dad, I've been thinking," she started, her voice soft but clear. "I never really understood why you kept so much from us. I was angry, hurt, but I see now how much it must have weighed on you. All of it." I felt a lump form in my throat. I had never wanted to hurt Rachel. It had been so hard to shield her from everything, to keep her from the truth that had already scarred me. But she was right. The pain wasn't just mine to carry anymore. "I wasn't trying to hurt you, Rachel," I said quietly. "I thought I was protecting you from all of this, from the truth, but maybe I was wrong." She looked at me, her expression softening. "I don't think you were wrong to protect us, but I see now the pain you've carried. I see it in your eyes. I didn't understand. I didn't know how heavy it was." I nodded, feeling the weight of her words. "I've done things I regret, things that hurt you, but I'm ready to try and fix it, to fix what's left of our family." Rachel looked down, her hands shaking slightly. She took a deep breath and finally spoke. "I want to help, Dad. I've been working on something that might help, a way to restore the family's reputation. I've gathered information, looked into the legal side of things. We can fix this together." I felt a flicker of hope in my chest. Rachel had always been strong, but to see her step up like this, willing to take responsibility, it meant everything. "You're sure about this?" I asked, my voice tight with emotion. She nodded, her eyes meeting mine with a new determination. "We can rebuild, Dad. I believe that, but it's going to take all of us. I'll fight for us, for you. I know it's going to take time, but we'll get there." Her words were a balm to my soul, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like maybe we had a chance. A few days later, Jordan came to see me. I hadn't expected him to show up, not after everything that had happened. But there he was, standing at the door, his face drawn and tired. I could see the desperation in his eyes. "Dad," he said, his voice strained, "I know I've done things that can never be forgiven. But I'm asking, no, begging for a chance. I didn't know how to fix it, but I'm trying to. I'm trying to make it right." I looked at him, feeling a mix of anger and sorrow. This wasn't the son I raised. But as I looked at his face, I saw something else. Regret. Real regret. And maybe, just maybe, a glimmer of hope for him. "I'm not here to make excuses," Jordan continued, "but I want to fix this. I know I can't undo everything, but I'm working on it. I've been trying to clear the family's name. I've made some calls, set things up to fix what I've broken." I stared at him for a long time, my heart torn between the father who loved his son and the man who had been betrayed. "You've made a mess of things, Jordan, but I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to hear you out. But you've got to do more than apologize. You have to show me you can change." Jordan nodded, his eyes wide with a mixture of hope and regret. "I will. I promise. I'll do whatever it takes." The days that followed were a blur of meetings, legal consultations, and decisions. As I moved forward with the process of restoring the family's name, I found myself holding on to the wisdom my wife had left me. The journey wasn't over, but I wasn't alone anymore. Then, just when I thought I had seen everything, an unexpected ally stepped forward, someone I never thought would support me, someone I never saw as a friend, but they did. And with their help, it felt like the light at the end of the tunnel was closer than ever. We were a broken family, no doubt, but with each step, we moved closer to healing. Slowly, things began to come together, at least enough to start again. We gathered together, All of us, me, Rachel, Jordan, and even a few extended family members. The weight of what we had been through hung in the air, but there was something else too, a sense of resolve. We weren't finished yet. The family, though scarred, was beginning to understand what it would take to move forward. Look, this isn't going to be easy, I said, my voice steady. But we have a choice. We can either keep tearing each other apart, or we can rebuild. We can start over. Rachel and Jordan exchanged a look, then nodded. The air felt different now, charged with something new. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. As I looked at my family, I realized that what I had fought for wasn't just the business or the name, it was the bond we shared. And though we had a long way to go, it was a start. Was it enough? Only time would tell.